Okay, in this tutorial, I'm just looking at a couple of different ways of revealing content. It was inspired by my previous tutorial. There was a Facebook post asking about how to enable you to get scroll bars on content, so you can set the fixed height and get scroll bars. So my previous tutorial talks about that. It made me think that there's some other easy ways that we can actually reveal content on Hover without needing any plugins. Now, the first option I've got here, which I'll work through, actually I'll work through them in reverse, but so let's talk about this top one as being the second option, is when I roll my mouse over, I can see the content expand and it doesn't push the content below it down. So it's absolutely positioned and it sits on top of the content. So that's one way of doing it. This way requires both some CSS and JavaScript, which I'll explain when I work through. Second method is pure CSS, and all it does is expand the box. So anything below it gets pushed down. So if you've got other columns below it, you've got other sections, photos, all that sort of stuff, they're going to get pushed down when you roll your mouse over these. This is pure, simple CSS. So let's head over to the test page. I'm actually going to just clear this page. We'll have a look at the tutorial that I've created, and I'll put a link to this in the video as well. So our first step is to get an image box widget. In this case, it could be any kind of widget. We're just going to use an image box for this example. We want to get an image box widget and add that to the editor and set the styles to our preferences. We want to add the class reveal wrapper. So let's just do those first three steps in a very simple swipe. So if I type image box, image, there's my image box, there's one there. Pick an image. I'll pick this car. I only want the 1024. We're going to set the style of that to have the image at 100%. Set our title color to be white. Our description color to be a little bit grey. There we go. And then we want to add to the advanced, we want to add that class real wrapper. So I'm just going to copy that. Reveal wrapper, I should say. We'll stick that into the advanced classes. So that's pretty much our setup for this first image box widget. Now, the next bit is the CSS. We want to copy the CSS below in the pure CSS option and put it to wherever our preference is. Now, this could be in your site settings, could be in Customizer, could be in many, many places. I'm going to demonstrate it using the HTML widget. So what I'm going to do is just roll down to here, and here's my CSS for the pure CSS. I click on that to copy it to the clipboard. Head back over to my editor and get an HTML widget. I'm actually going to put that in a section below. So I'm just going to drag my HTML widget. And this is available in both free and pro. There's my HTML widget. I'll stick it in its own section. And I'm going, because I'm putting in the style in here, I've got to wrap it in a style tag. If I put it into site settings, CSS, or if I put it into my site settings CSS, page CSS, or anything that's an editor in Elementor, I don't need to wrap it in these style tags. That's giving me some style. Okay, now we're going to need some decent copy for this. I'm going to grab a lorem ipsum generator and just generate a couple of paragraphs of text. Grab that first couple of paragraphs. Get over to my widget and put that in the content. Okay, so there's our content. Now, back over to my tutorial. In my step here, we do that, and then we just keep duplicating the columns a few times, so we end up with some nice full columns. So I'm just going to right-click on this column, duplicate it, right-click again, duplicate it, right-click again, and duplicate it. What we're seeing here is actually our text is not working for some reason. Let's have a look at what I've missed. There we go. I missed the step here. So the description I've just put in there, I've got to wrap it in a span called reveal target. I head back over to my content, wrap that in a span. Got my little Grammarly things in the way there. Okay, so now the first one's working. Probably the easiest thing to do is I'll just delete these columns and re-copy them. Duplicate them again. Okay, update this page. Actually, I might put some padding on there first so we can differentiate them. Maybe I'll stick about 80 pixels, top 80 at the bottom. Okay, and head over to the page and just refresh that, live page. And there's our 4 columns. As I hover over, it expands. And as it expands, it pushes down the content below it. So that's because it's just basically scaling the maximum height of this from the default of 300 pixels through to the maximum height it can be. So that's all it's doing. There's no positioning. And quick one here is we can look at the CSS for that. And we can see we've got a height. We can set of 200 pixels at the moment. If I want that to be smaller, like in the other tutorial, I can go to my attributes and set the style of that particular attribute to, say, 100 pixels. Now, you're not going to see it in the editor because these attribute styles don't get processed here. I'll update that, head back over to my live site, F5. That didn't apply for some reason. I'll have to look at that a bit later. Okay, I'll look at this later. So let's just move on to the second option. So my second option is to use JavaScript and CSS. I'm going to duplicate the entire section and change the reveal wrapper class to be reveal widget. Okay, so I'll duplicate this. Now, changing my top class here to be reveal widget. On each of these. Okay, and then we need to wrap our content into an extra span. Now, the reason we do this is that the content that we've got set to a fixed height and then revealing, we want to set a container above that, make the container relatively positioned. We'll leave this in place. JavaScript will add a copy of all this, and then it will absolutely position it so we can expand it without moving content. Content. Oops. Paste that in there. Now we've got an extra span, so I need to go to the end of this and add an extra span closure. Okay, so we've got 2 spans at the top, so we've got 2 spans at the bottom. Okay, now we need to get our pure CSS. Sorry, we need to get our CSS for the second option, so that's this one here. I'll click on that to copy that. I'm going to get another HTML widget. Put that down below this other one. Oh, sorry, the editor's not letting me do much here. I have to drag it into the editor and then drag it down. And I'll just rename that to say plus, so we know which one, plus JS. And in here, we want to, again, style tag. Paste that in. We want a JavaScript next, so we want a script tag. Scroll down here, and I'm just going to click on my JavaScript for the second option. And paste that in there. All right. Again, because I've changed some of this format, my easiest way is to delete these columns. And duplicate, and duplicate. Update that. Now what I should see, if I refresh my page here, so the bottom ones were the first one that we did where it just expands the whole content. The one we've just done there, it expands on top of the existing content, so it's absolutely positioned, so it's not going to move any content below it. So that's the one that we've just done. Now let's have a look at, see if we got it right this time for the CSS overrides, and I'll explain a little about CSS overrides shortly. So if I go back to my HTML and JS widget, we can see we've got some variables up here, and one of them is our hover BG color. We grab that and go to our first widget and go to the advanced and set our attributes to style, hover BG color. I'll make it red for now. Okay, and do an F5. Oh, this is not playing nicely for me today. Let's figure out what's going on. So at the top here, I've got my advanced, my layout. I've got reveal widget at the top. And here I've got reveal widget there, my background color, hover BG color there. Copy that again. Using the hover BG color there. To my widget, so let's just check this. So we've got reveal widget. Top. There's the problem. Common problem. I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see what it is. It's just something that Elementor have done with the way they do these style tags. So I get caught by this all the time. So when we look at the attributes here, see I've used style colon. I'm used to CSS, it's the style and then the pipe symbol. And that's how they separate attributes with values. If we update that, F5, now we've got a red background. Okay. Now, the same with this. That's exactly the same problem I was having with this one down here. So let's look at this. So I've got the red there in the background just by changing the style attribute on here to the dash dash hover dash BG dash color is red. We can make that green. Now we've got a green background. So you can make it anything you like. The default is black. So how defaults work is with the CSS, is that if we look at our CSS here, so under the rule reveal widget, I'm setting these variables. Now this is the reason I've got to put the reveal widget class on the widget at the top here. It could be called anything, but I called it reveal widget. And then I prefix all of these other classes or the other rules with reveal widget so it inherits these values. When you set the style attributes on an element, they override these. So if I've got the height set to 200 here, and I have a style of height equals 100 on the attributes, so over here on these attributes, if I had styles height equals 100 pixels, then it should make it 100 pixels. Let me just try it on this one. Semicolon, minus height, 100 px. Try that on the live site. So this first widget should be different. There we go. So the first widget is only 100 in height. These are 200 in height. So the 100 it's getting from the default. The default here in the content. 100 is getting from this reveal widget plus the default height of 200. And on this particular widget, it's getting overridden by having this attribute here, style with the pipe, not colon, properties separated by a semicolon. I've got dash height, colon 100 pixels, which overrides it. So I'm not sure what I messed up down here. I'll have to look at that a little bit later. But that's the gist of it. So now you can create whichever hover effects you like. Whether you want it to push the content down, just use pure CSS. Or if you wanted to set the content below it to sit steady while this hovers over the top of it, then use the CSS and JavaScript option. All right, so hopefully that's useful.